Good morning, everybody. It is, I was going to say Positive Tuesday, but it isn't. It's Wisconsin State Senator representing the 25th District. Romaine Quinn is our very special guest today. Thursday, January 25th, 2024. For DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden, and you're watching DrydenWire Live, presented by Americans for Prosperity Wisconsin. AFP Wisconsin works to reignite the American dream and break down government barriers that hold us back from our full potential. Learn more at americansforprosperity.org and join AFP to fight for more freedoms for all Wisconsinites. As a reminder, Senator Quinn joins us live on the last Thursday of every month right here on DrydenWire Live. If you've missed any of the previous chats or any of our previous shows, you can find that on our website at DrydenWire.com, right here on Facebook where we do actually stream these live, and on our YouTube channel where we load all of our old videos. That's kind of the quicker, easier place to go and find videos. Just go to YouTube and search for DrydenWire. Romaine, good morning.
Morning. We can do like Positive Thursdays without Fitzy.
Oh,
find some new name for it.
Yeah, that'd be great. We could do Negative Thursdays. That'd be fun.
Oh, we could. I've got material for you.
Yeah, so the last couple of shows that we've done, you have been at home. Not that you weren't working, because you guys are always doing stuff, but it happened to be around Thanksgiving, and then of course Christmas and New Year, etc. So it's see, you're all dressed up. I'm assuming you don't do that when you're at home with a suit and tie on. So you must be down in Madison.
I am. I'm in the office today. We had a busy week and looking forward to getting home tonight. So
busy week.
Committees, caucus. We were on the Senate floor voting on stuff. So it's a lot of moving parts because session ends usually March-ish. And so it's always like a mad dash, like, okay, what bills do we have out there? Where are they? Are they ready for the floor? When can we schedule them? It's like a mad dash for everyone to get everything through that they want before the end of session.
Well, I want to find out more about what is all the busyness that has been going on and everything you just said. Like, so what are some of those things? But I did write down a couple of things I wanted to talk about, so we can get through that stuff, and then we can, whatever else you want to talk about. On Tuesday, when Barron County Sheriff, speaking of Positive Tuesday, when Sheriff Fitzgerald was on, he actually brought up on the show, which I didn't even know about at that point, that there was some hospital closures in the Chippewa Valley. I think Sacred Heart, someone said, and I think a couple others. We ended up doing like a post from someone on that night, I think. I still don't fully understand like how this all kind of works. But during that show, he had said that this is going to be impactful to law enforcement, specifically in Barron County, and of course, other factors that would be impacting our area, even though we're not in the Chippewa Valley, just north of it. Yep. And then he brought up that, you should ask a legislature. And I said, well, Romaine's going to be on Thursday. He said, ask a legislator. Is there something that they can do to help out so we don't have these things? So is this something that is on your radar that you were paying attention to, or is it, it's not my district, what do I care?
No, this is going to be extremely impactful in a negative way for the entire western region of the state. And so it's not just the Chippewa Valley, Purveya. It also is pulling out of western Wisconsin completely, including the clinic in Rice Lake. And so I was no different than you. I was not notified of these closings. There were some legislators in Chippewa Falls that were on a call, I think just minutes before the announcement. So I learned about this on Facebook, one, which I think is frustrating for those of us in the legislature to hear this. So we're still trying to honestly wrap our minds around how big of an impact this will be. And the more we talk, the more severe it gets. I mean, we're not talking just law enforcement. That's a big deal, right? When you Chapter 51 someone, to bring them to a psychiatric bed, they're limited. We're always forced to drive to Madison because, heaven forbid we have services in northern Wisconsin. And so there was beds in Chippewa Falls. I don't know if you remember, Ben, a while ago, like Patty Shocker and I would spat back and forth because we were talking about how to get more beds built in Chippewa Falls. Right. That would have been on that hospital. So thank God we didn't invest $14 million because that would have been right down the tubes because that hospital is now going to be closed. So like I said, we're still trying to understand the ramifications of this. Cancer patients, where are they going to go to continue their care? Pregnant women who have been doctoring with someone, where are they going to have their child now? There's a whole gamut of issues, the mental health treatment, and where is this going to take place? So right now, I would say to start with, if you are one of the employees that are going to be laid off and you're struggling getting your unemployment benefits that you've earned, give our office a call. We can definitely work through some of the red tape to make sure that you get some of those benefits. We know there's going to be federal aid with some closures this long, the retraining. It's really going to be mind-boggling. We don't see like major hospitals just closing, right? Maybe clinics here and there, but this is really unprecedented right now. And so, even as legislators, we're working with our counterparts to figure out just how impactful this is going to be.
Well, first of all, good morning, Gabe Magnifici, Representative Magnifici, and Chief Dave Wilson, Renee Hewitt, a good friend of ours. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. So, going to that part of, so it sounds like you're still in the process of figuring out all of the impacts, and we may not know that for a while. But the part that was the most fascinating, what you said, was that you didn't know. It reminds me a little bit of when the stay at home or safer at home, whatever that was called, during the COVID. And I remember asking Sheriff Fitzgerald about, hey, you see this, there's a press release out and everyone this, that, and you can't do all. Did the governor's office reach out to you, law enforcement, the Badger State Sheriff Association, the Chiefs Association, et cetera, to say, hey, this is what's coming down. You have any questions, let me know, because you're going to be handling a lot of these calls if people violate certain things. And he said, no, I'm actually, when I was on the phone with him, he said, I'm literally reading on DrydenWire right now.
Sure.
Didn't even know about it at all. Who should have told you? Why do you feel as though, and I don't mean necessarily you, Romaine, but legislators, how come you didn't know?
Yeah, I think any system that's making that decision where they have regional impacts should have been notifying us. Like I said, it's not as severe in terms of a direct footprint with just the clinic in Race Lake, but the ramifications are much larger. And what's interesting too, and I know they're competitors, but just last night I was speaking with someone that lobbies for Mayo Clinic, and I said, could this be an opportunity to open the OBGYN wing back up in Barron? If you're looking at staff that are now in need of positions and you couldn't find those before, because I think the numbers that last I heard was they're delivering between the closures 900 babies a year between those two hospitals. Where do those mothers go? Where do those babies get delivered? Mayo Clinic and Marshfield and those footprints can't just pick up 900 births based on their current setup. Where do these people go? So, and he told me, I read about it the same time you read about it. So Mayo Clinic didn't know, Marshfield Clinic didn't know. And that's the frustrating part. So I know it's hard to keep things secret, but at a higher level, you would think those CEOs, those management would be in contact with their counterparts to say, hey, here's the deal. We're taking financial losses in this market. We're pulling out. Sign a non-disclosure agreement, but let's work together. How many positions do you have open today that I know my employees can pick up tomorrow? What kind of services could you look at expanding? What's your physical footprint like to make sure there's a smooth transition for patients that need services? The same thing happened when Marshfield Clinic just dropped the pediatric care in Rice Lake. I can't remember the name of it. They served like 200 kiddos with severe issues where they needed that pediatric care and therapy. And they didn't tell any family or us and said, well, you'll have to drive to Marshfield. And then we found out later, we worked with North Lakes Community Clinic. They opened up a space. They hired those ex-employees, and we continued that care in Rice Lake. But that should have happened before the announcement was made, before I was getting calls from parents who were losing sleep at night. And so this was really a poor job at announcing this, and it's really frustrating for a lot of people. But it is what it is, and we're going to do our best to figure out what we can do to work with patients and employees to make sure we can continue the important care that is now going to be gone.
So is that kind of the answer then to what Fitzy was asking or suggesting, that legislators or the legislature should step in and be doing something? I don't know what it is, but doing something. But how can you do that if you don't even know what's going on?
Right. And there could be more. I mean, as things unravel, maybe there's room for targeted funding for something particular that could really continue a service. There could be those opportunities. We don't know them yet.
Sure.
And I think bigger picture, we also continue to have to look at our Medicaid program and the state's reimbursement rates. As more and more people do not have private insurance, they're either on Medicare or they're on Medicaid, and they reimburse below the cost of care. And so that's why we have programs in Wisconsin called like DISH payments. So the hospitals that disproportionately have a lot of Medicaid patients, we give them supplemental funds because we know they're providing care for people on a state program and we're not paying 100% of the bill. So for those that have a lot of those patients, we give extra money, right? So maybe we re-examine our dish payment program or particular programs that are really loss leaders for hospitals that we could fund at higher rates. So I think there's definitely stuff the state can do better at, but how this played out is a problem.
It
It's going to be
is.
a big problem.
Well, I want to ask you about the Barron County Republican Party. It seems like we talk about all the time, but just an update there. And obviously, what's happening all this week or so far has been the topic of maps. Again, I know we talked a lot about maps last time, but Assembly passed something yesterday. The Senate then passed something that was like a re-edited version of Evers's maps. It's kind of a
Yep.
debacle. We'll get into all that. But hey, speaking of health systems, we'll be back in 15 seconds after a word from Spooner Health.
Compassion is at the center of everything we do. It's rooted in who we are and why we're here. It unites us as providers, neighbors, and as a community. Learn more at spoonerhealth.com.
See, there you go, Spooner Health.
Give 'em a
Have
call.
you had when this stuff happens? And I know that you have a lot of conversations with, speaking of Spooner Health, with Spooner Health CEO Mike Schaefer, who's a friend of the show
Yeah.
as well. And I know you have a lot of conversations with him. He's told me,
Yep.
and you've told me as well. Have you had any conversations with him about this? I know you've been in Madison and busy, but have you had any conversations with him or other CEOs of these health systems? You were mentioning a lobbyist for Mayo, but any of the actual health systems themselves?
Yeah, so actually, I shot Mike a message 2 days ago on my way to Madison, but then I got stuck on the phone. And he was having something done in Minnesota, so he was stuck in bed. He's like, I'd love to chat. And then between the floor and caucus, I had no time to call him. So my
Sure.
intent on the way home today, when I've got 3.5 hours of windshield time, is to finally make that connection. Because I just shot him a message. I said, what does this look like for Spooner? There's probably opportunities. They're down nurses. Could you pick up some nurses that are willing to move to the Spooner area? So, I mean, there could be opportunities for other systems, but overall, everyone that's in this business, the idea is to care for patients, and this isn't good
No.
for anyone.
So the Barron County Republican Party, catch people up
Yep.
real quick. This happened several months ago. It kind of got disbanded. You know what? I'll let you do the quick recap and then tell us where are we today.
Yeah, so we finally came to our conclusion. It's unfortunate that this is spilled out publicly, but every time we try to do something and quietly, it gets leaked all over the state by a particular party. So it's really not a secret anymore. Statewide, people know what's going on in Barron County. So basically, there's just been a disagreement on leadership style, I would say, between the general membership and a handful of people that run our board and currently sit as the chair. Not currently, they're gone now, technically. And so, fast forward, a lot has happened. I could talk about it for an hour. But frankly, the final conclusion came last weekend. We met in the Wisconsin Dells, where the executive committee of the Republican Party of Wisconsin got to finally hear complaints firsthand of what's been going on. And after that, they made a final decision to revoke the charter of the Barron County Republican Party due to the constitutional violations of our leadership and the lack of transparency, the lack of listening to membership, so on and so forth. So as of Monday this week, the Barron County Republican Party no longer exists.
What?
They revoked the charter. It's gone. And so if you see the Barron County Republican Party Facebook page continue to post, that is not representative of the Barron County Party because they are officially gone. We no longer have a chairman. We no longer have a board. And those shenanigans have now come to an end. So in the next month or two, the state party will come up and they're going to reorganize us and let members vote, which is all we've wanted this whole year. And so if the past people that ran the party into the ground want to run again, they think they have the membership on their side, they're more than happy to do that. They're allowed to do that. But it's just going to allow us to finally have a voice over what the party is going to be doing for those of us that are paid regular members. And I'm excited for that. I'm excited to get back to the good work we used to do, the camaraderie and the relationships we used to build. Back in the day, the only thing we'd argue about is, are we going to have ham or chicken for our annual dinner? That's all the disagreement we ever had. And now it's like, oof.
Yeah, that's kind of bizarre. You're right. I mean, if you're all kind of like-minded, You really shouldn't disagree on how. So I just actually went to the Barron County Republican Party's Facebook page, and I see, 3 days ago was the last time I see. 3 days ago, a lot of things shared from Jim Swenson. Who's Jim Swenson?
That is our former chairman who's now gone.
Okay.
Supposed to be.
So the Republican Party is sharing his. That's fine. Oh, that'll be interesting. I'm going to go scroll through all of this.
If you want some light reading, there's been some doozies lately. So, yeah.
Okay.
But again, just so the public's aware, any communication that's supposedly officially from the Barron County Republican Party, it's not true. It's now defunct.
How do you? So how does that part play in the Facebook? Because somebody could like totally hijack, and I don't know who has access to this, and I don't need to know that stuff. But how does that work? If it's going to kind of be rebuilt, what happens to that page? And if that isn't, if it isn't a situation where they have to be removed as administrators for the page, whomever that would be, and then the new people come in, and maybe that's like a new policy that only the whatever. But if that, you just start a different one and call it something else, like an acronym for it or something. But if that still exists, is there any concern about potential false information being sent out that the community isn't aware that, no, this isn't actually the Barron County Republican Party anymore? Is there plans for that?
Well, that's what we're trying to work through, right? I assume when this happened, we're not going to get the bank account back. We're not going to get the website domain name back, and we're probably not going to get the Facebook page back. Now, luckily, it's my understanding the state has been able to obtain the bank account again. Once they did that, we found out that these people drained the account the day of the hearing where we were revoked because they probably knew they were going to lose. And so they bought themselves hotel rooms and went out and had a nice steak dinner for $750 and spent the party account down to about $600. So in my mind, it's just icing on the cake. It's more behavior of what we've known this entire last year, but it's coming to an end. So right now, I think the state party is probably going to have to petition Facebook and say, hey, this isn't real anymore. The people running this page are masquerading as something they aren't. We are the official Republican Party of Wisconsin. We now control the assets of this party until it's reorganized. Please hand it over, because I know the former, not current, the former chairman's probably not going to do that or go down willingly still. So it's going to be something we have to work on. And hopefully it's not a problem, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well, if that's true, what you had said regarding the bank account situation, my understanding, or I think, isn't that money that is given from community members, right? Donate to the party, and to fund candidates, right? So our membership doesn't know this yet. When we reorganize and we get to meet, and they find out that they blew $1,800 on the Saturday before they got revoked, that's
they're
disgusting.
Gonna snap.
That's disgusting.
They're gonna snap. So, but
all right.
We'll see.
Well, hopefully we'll have better news next month when you come back on about positive stuff going forward.
Positive.
See, this is a negative Thursday. I love it.
It has been negative so far.
Yeah, kind of. Hey, well, this will cheer everybody up. Hey, maps. So a lot of things going on this right. So a lot of things going on this week. Apparently, this is my understanding, is that the assembly kind of took up, it's like an 11th hour bill type thing that we kind of, in my opinion, it's to stave off the Supreme Court from having to make a decision. Let's take Governor Evers' maps and have it like basically like 99% the same. Just make some tweaks. That got passed in Assembly. Then I think that was yesterday or the day before. Then Senate, your Senate, I believe yesterday, passed it as well. Not unanimous. Several Republican senators voted against it. I think it was like 17-14, if I recall, when I read this morning or something like that, that it got passed. But Evers had said, hey, unless you're passing my map, this is just you're saying it's a version of my map, but it's not my map. So unless it's mine, I'm not approving it. I'm vetoing this anyway. Where was I wrong?
You're not. And so obviously, my feelings on this whole process. I think it's a sham. It's clearly an attempt. It's a power grab. But so let's just, for the average person that's not left or right, think about what we just did this week. And so right now, February 1st is coming up. Excuse me. The court said, petitioners, governor, legislature, whoever wants to, submit me your map. Submit us a map that we can either pick outright We'll have our 2 hired guns look through them, maybe tweak them, or maybe we don't take any of the maps you submit and we'll draw our own, right? But they also said, legislature, if you and the governor do your job and send us a map and sign it, we're done, right? Because that is the constitutional process. The legislature draws the map. And so we said, okay, we can either roll the dice and let these 2 people from out of state draw a map that the court will pick, which God only knows what it's going to look like.
Right.
Or we can say, let's compromise, and even though it's not what we want, send the governor something he can sign. And so I voted for a map that drew me out of my own seat and that almost locks in a Democrat majority in both houses. And the governor has already come out and said he's going to veto it. So there were very minuscule changes that we changed the governor's map, because the governor's map was 110% partisan. He drew 30 Republicans into the same seat together. So incumbency is very powerful. So if you can get rid of an incumbent, people tend to vote for who they know. It makes that seat much more open. So he paired 30 Republicans. So either have a primary or someone's got to quit or sell their house and move. You know how many Democrats he paired?
I'm going to guess less than 5.
2.
Okay.
Yep, 2, and the one's retiring. So there was no pairing. So all we did was, for a particular couple of seats, I think 6 assembly seats, we straightened out the lines more and didn't screw the incumbent on purpose. So we have one guy, the governor, like a surgeon, carved around his house 15 feet and drew him out of his seat. 15 feet. At the press conference, he got out a tape measure and said, this is how far I am from my district line. Like, it was 150% intentional, right? So literally, we just voted and sent the governor a map that's 99.3% exactly what he wanted. And so if I was him, I would sign it. But of course, since there's a 0.7% change, it's not his map and he's not getting exactly what he wants, he's probably not going to sign it. He's already threatened to veto, which again, we have members that literally compromised and are voting themselves out of office, and he's still not going to sign it because he knows, I think the courts will give an even worse map than I can draw. So he wants the courts to draw the map. And so again, going back to this whole thing is a sham from the very beginning on how it's played out. Our arguments in court aren't even responded to. All of this stuff. So we'll see what happens. At the end of the day, we did our part. We constitutionally passed the map. We gave the governor 99.3% what he wanted. And so if this court case continues and I get another email saying, stop spending all this money on attorneys, you know what? That wasn't us. We could have ended that this week. And so I don't want to hear it. This is going to get drug out to the end because that's exactly what the governor wants.
99%. I mean, usually when there's compromises, bipartisan bills, and it's never 99%. So 99%, I mean, isn't in the political world what you guys refer to as a win? If you can get 99% of everything you want and only have to give up, that's a win in politics, I thought. But no, I understand. Wants to go there, and it seems as though, I mean, the common belief is that it will be worse for Republicans if the Supreme Court are the ones that decide based on these two. That seems to be the common belief anyway. So yeah, you're right. If you're him, it's like, plus you don't want to give the Republicans any kind of a victory. That's politics. So yeah, I think we talked about last time you're on. There's no way, in my opinion, that this was going to end until the Supreme Court actually did it. There's just no way. So all these other maps and the will map, which I actually kind of like the will map. Not going to lie. That was pretty good. But none of these, it doesn't matter. It's going to go to the Supreme Court, and they're going to have to do it. They just are. So what is the next then? When are we going to know if it's going to be this week regarding what you guys did yesterday?
Yeah, so the Assembly concurred with the map that we sent them. And so that's on the governor's desk right now. So he's got, so many days to veto it, sign it like a typical bill. And then starting February 1st is when the court-appointed people will start their own review, I think, and that will kick off their timeline of what they want to do. Gosh, excuse me. So the deadline is March 15th. They've kind of arbitrarily set on themselves because we start pulling papers if you want to run April 1st. Yeah. So we kind of have to have, we have to know if we live in a seat to be able to run it before you pull papers. But I'm hoping that we know something mid-February. These guys should have already been working. They've already seen the maps. it should not take a month and a half to tell us what you're going to make us do, unless you want to create the most chaos possibly. So just give us the map you're going to give us,
Yeah.
and
Let's
so we
go.
can start.
Let's go.
Yep. It's
Right.
not only
And
that.
they're getting paid. It's not like this is a part-time thing they're doing on the weekends. So
Right.
it
Yeah.
should be your
100
full-time
grand.
gig. Right.
Yeah.
No kidding. That's a pretty good job, man. $100,000 for a few
Yep.
weeks of work.
And voters need to know this too, because under the governor's map we voted for, 656,000 people roughly will not be able to vote on a state Senate seat in 6 years. And they may have a senator that's not who they picked. So you want to talk about voter disenfranchisement. If I'm in the middle of a term and my senator's drawn out and my cycle's not up, it could potentially be 6 years before I get to vote on who my representative is. So it's
How?
goofy.
I don't understand that. What do you mean? Because they don't get appointed.
Right. So like for our seat, for instance, under the governor's map, I'm drawn out of the 25th.
Uh-huh.
Technically, under past preference or past, the way we played this out is I'm still the holdover for the 25th, even though I don't live in the seat anymore. But I don't live in the 25th anymore. I'm in the new 23rd, right? And then there's a holdover in that seat because he got drawn out into a new seat into Eau Claire. And so you've got people, 90% of the district north that voted for me for, that final term. You could argue, their senator is now gone, even though they were in the middle of a constitutionally elected term.
Right.
So, yeah. And then depending on, or if they switch the numbers on us, like, are we even now, or are we going to be an odd district who's actually up on that cycle?
Okay, that was the variable I was missing. I'm like, I don't understand how we got to the 6, though. I can see 2 to 4, but now I get it.
So the number of the actual district matters too. So because even seats are going to be up this cycle. So it's goofy. I think there's gonna be a lot of confusion, and especially down in Madison where they said these islands are an issue. So right now we talked about there's municipality boundaries that are outside of their typical configuration, right? Maybe they bought an airport, maybe they bought municipal land, and there could be 10 people that live out there. That's what the court said our maps are unconstitutional about. That's why they threw them in the garbage. You have islands. So now, but play that out. They've been there for 50 years. So how does a municipal clerk, he or she is going to have to make multiple ballots for the same jurisdiction. Because I'm going to have people in my municipality now that have more than one senator, more than one representative, even though I'm part of the same jurisdiction. Because I'm a municipal island, but I'm now in a new Senate seat because it wasn't contiguous. So now we got to throw them separate. So it's going to be goofy.
And we do this every 10 years, right? After the census. So in theory, we're doing this again in 6 years.
Yeah, that's the fun part, right?
So how many
doing this all over again?
We've done it once. Gee, this is like the fourth in a 10-year period. We'd have 4 different maps, or potentially.
Yep.
4 different. Wow. No wonder you guys don't get anything done down there.
Right. Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. So those are the things I had written down. Thanks so much for kind of walking us through some of that and sharing some of your views and opinions. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? I'm sure there's a tons of things, but anything kind of pressing or on your mind?
Yeah, I would say this week, I got drowned out between the state of the state address and then the closures and everything. But the legislature came back out with a new tax cut proposal for the middle class. If you remember, we tried in the budget, we tried separate legislation. The governor's vetoed everything so far. So we have gone back and geared this to exactly the numbers he defines as middle class. He said the middle class is a married couple making $150,000 or less. He doesn't want to give tax relief to anybody above that. And so we can talk about ideologically, is that good or bad? At some point, we'll have to address our highest bracket because it's like the second highest in our region. So if we want those people to not move their assets somewhere else or headquarters somewhere else, we still have to figure that out. But take him for his word. So we have 4 different tax cut proposals. One that I offered is raising the dependent and child care tax credit. And so this would help families be able to more afford childcare. We know childcare centers are struggling. Some of them are closing. Some of them are raising rates. And it's getting more and more expensive to get care for your children while you work. So this credit already exists. It's around like $400 a year. and we raise the caps. So if you qualify for the maximum credit based on your income, amount of children, and what your expenses are, it could go up to $34 or $4,000. So a $3,600 increase. So the average is going to be around $700. So for some people, that could be an entire month of childcare.
Yeah, that's right.
For a good portion of it. So real money back in the pockets of parents. On top of that, we are going to raise, I don't know if it's a tax credit, but try to fix the marriage penalty we have in the state. Most people don't realize if you are married instead of a single filer, you're paying more. If you and Jerusha were single, but you're living together, you would pay less in taxes because you have more of your income in that first bracket before you hit the second bracket, before you hit the third bracket, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you're married, all your income is one, and so you only get the lower bracket one time. And so you are actually effectively paying more in income tax because you're married than if you two were just living together and stayed single.
So we should just get divorced and then save money.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Fantastic.
No, don't
That's
do that.
fantastic.
Don't do that. So this would be about an $850 cut for married filers.
Oh, nice.
Which is important, I think. We're also taking the second bracket. If the governor doesn't want us to reduce the incomes of the higher brackets, we're going to take our lower bracket and expand it to more people. And so that second bracket, it cut off at $38,000. We're going to raise it to $150,000. So we're going to shove a bunch of filers down into a lower bracket by going the other way to see if he would sign it. And the last one, the retirement piece.
Smart.
We're going to stop taxing retirement income for the first $150,000 for married retirees. That's $1,500 back in their pocket on an annual basis.
Slow down. Hold on a second. $150,000 is not your first $150,000 of retirement is not going to be taxed
at all from the state of
but
Wisconsin.
Only for married.
No, or single at $75,000.
Okay. Okay. Yep. So I'm like, is there any particular reason? It's like, boy, we just hate those single people. Or let's face it, by the time you get older, you could be a widow, or your wife could have died. That's what I was asking. I'm like, what?
Right.
Okay, so that makes sense. Married couples, $150,000, or single, $75,000, because duh, you know.
Yep.
Okay.
And so, I mean, you've paid taxes your whole life, and now you're paying taxes on the money you saved, so you could finally retire, right? And with other states, they don't tax retirement income. They have warmer weather. Some of them don't even have an income tax. Let's stop forcing our retirees to transplant or to residence in Florida or Texas or Arizona, right? We want them here. We want them spending their money here. We want them spending their time with their grandkids and their families. Like, we don't want to tax seniors into other locations. And so it'll be about $1,500 to $1,600 in the tax cut for the average married retirees in the state of Wisconsin. So accumulatively, we always hear, that tax cut's not a lot, just keep it. But when you add these all together, it is significant tax relief, and it still leaves about $1 billion in our checkbook at the start of the biennium.
Love it.
And so we can afford it. We've took too much out of your pocket, and we want to give it back to you. And we're using the thresholds the governor demanded. And so, and even the better part, we're doing them all as single bills. No more of this. Well, I liked these three, but I didn't like that one, so I'm going to veto the whole package.
Smart.
No, up or down. Child care tax credit, you're for it or against it. Senior tax credit, you're for it or against it. Married deduction, you're for it or against it. So keep it clean, keep it simple. We actually want tax reform signed. No more games. Give people more of their money back to help them cope with the cost of inflation, or now putting gas in their cars, they drive to a new hospital because they have to find care somewhere. I mean, These are real life things that people need help with.
Now, is this a Republican agenda or a Romaine Quinn agenda, or is this I think we can all get behind this one? Some of the things you just mentioned, is there a huge pushback from the other side of the aisle on some of these things? Or if that hasn't happened yet, do you anticipate that happening?
I think there are people in Madison that do hate all tax cuts. No, not all Democrats, hate tax cuts. A lot of them, I think, are really going to vote for this. I think it's going to be bipartisan. We're using the numbers they want, the governor wants. We're not touching the top highest income earners. So I think it'll get signed into law. That was our goal with this, to actually get something signed before the end of the legislative session.
Good. That'd be nice.
Yep.
No, you guys have gotten a lot of other things done as well, but I think that's what a lot of people just want to see, just something that is benefiting other people. Because everybody's got a grandma or knows someone that's a grandma or that's married. All the things that you just went through, and I wrote them all down, that's going to be applicable to a number of people, like a large percentage of people.
Yep. Broad tax relief for every Wisconsinite. Literally, anyone in this state that works will see a reduction. Doesn't matter how little you make or how much you make, everyone will see some kind of tax relief under this package.
I thought I saw yesterday, I didn't read through the whole thing, I just kind of skimmed through it, that Governor Evers, I don't know if he signed it or passed it or did something to it or just said he wanted to, but it was along the lines of contraceptives are free if you're on like Badger Care or something. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, we don't get his speeches ahead of time, so I don't know what he's talking about. But I think, if I remember right, he mentioned in his speech that the feds are now approving some form of contraceptive
that's
that doesn't require a prescription. And so what he's saying is he's ordering our Medicaid program to buy a bunch of it now to make sure no one has any copays, no prescription necessary. They can just get it at the store.
Okay.
And so that's just a future executive order. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I haven't read
okay.
it.
So that wasn't, and again, I just remember skimming past it. I didn't know if that was like, it's a done deal or that was a, hey, this is what we should do. And
right.
Okay.
Yep. A future executive order. And then one last issue that Representative Sappick, myself, Representative Green, Armstrong, and others have been working on is there's a lot of conversations around the deer population or the lack of deer that we have on our landscape.
Yeah.
And so we introduced a recent bill that would eliminate doe hunts for the next 4 years in the northern forest zone. And so we've gotten a lot of wide reactions on that out of the gate, which is good because people are engaged. And there's still going to be a public hearing process, an executive session, floor session. So there is room to move. But we had to throw a stake in the ground that says, hey, the biologists that are guiding our CDACs that are telling us there's enough deer on the landscape, I don't think have the right information. Hunters after hunters, people who have 10, 12, 15 trail cameras out there, they manage hundreds of acres. The deer are not there like they used to be. There's a whole host of issues, wolves, predators, we had a hard winter, etc. But we have to do something about it as humans. So if we can't control the predator population, we have to stop taking so many deer in the northern forest zone where the herd is herding. And so we're going to have a lot of great conversations on that. Maybe it's not 4 years, maybe it's 3 or 2, things like that. But if you look this last deer season, I know that's your favorite sport, Ben. But for those of us that deer hunt, Douglas County, the kill was down 30% in 1 year. Ashland County was down 33%. I think Bayfield was 27%. In Iron County, their deer kill was down 55% over last year. And what does that mean? Do hunters just suck now? No. The deer aren't there. The deer aren't there to shoot, and they're not tagging as many. And so we have to do something to say, hey, we can talk about the seasons, raising out-of-state fees, management zones. Do we bring back tags back? Let's talk about all those things. But right now, we have to stop killing so many does to get our deer herd back. So we're going to have a public hearing on that soon. If you have questions, concerns, comments, we've had listening sessions on it. Great feedback. I'm assuming there's going to be changes, but please reach out.
Yeah, so what's I can understand the upside to that. I think you talked to me last time, because I think I said something like, how do you get more deer? I would just make them go procreate or something. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But busy. It was to have the get but it was, if I recall, you had said about does, to not allow, or potentially to, then it grows the population. So you explained it, makes perfect sense. But what's the downside when you hear this stuff? Is it you said you got a lot of engagement, a lot of feedback from a lot of people already. What is the pushback for this? This is why we don't want to do it, even though you're trying to think, or it sounds like, but let's get us to where we want to be in 2, 3, 4 years. So obviously that makes sense, but what's the pushback?
So I think part of it is there's still going to be pockets in the northern forest zone that probably have a healthy doe population. And their concern could be, if I can't harvest any does in certain areas, could they be overpopulated, right?
Oh, sure.
And so that's the problem when you draw any kind of arbitrary line, which is another reason why we should get back to deer management units. In the old days, we had units in the counties that would say, okay, Prairie Farm in Barron County, a lot of deer, but not a lot off Swamp Road near Cedar Lake. And so they would set the amount of tags different for those regions.
That's awesome.
It wasn't just a county line, right? And so we need to get back to that to be able to be more targeted. It is more confusing. That was part of the reason they went away from it. I cross Highway 8. I'm in a different zone. I shoot a deer. Now I technically poached it because my tags for this side of Highway 8. So, I mean, anytime you draw a line, it's arbitrary and it's not perfect. But so that's part of the concern. We've heard conversations about youth hunt. If there aren't enough deer and there's not a lot of bucks to shoot, which is all you can shoot now, if I take a 10-year-old out and they see deer, only does and no bucks, and don't even get a chance at a shot for 1 or 2 years in a row, are they going to love hunting? Are they going to continue the sport? And and we don't want to damage the sport or future hunters.
I understand.
So maybe we allow youth hunts, but then people are going to complain, oh, the dad shot the deer, it wasn't the kid. And so, I mean, there's no perfect solution, but we do know we don't have enough deer. That's been universally accepted by hunters.
Okay.
And now let's find a solution to get more on the landscape.
So the pushback would be that line from Star Wars, somehow, because I don't hunt, so I'm a nerd. I have to reference Star Wars if we're talking hunting, just to keep my interest. But it was be mindful of the future, but not at the expense of the moment. So they're looking at yes, but what about this year? And like you just said, and next year. And then are we going to lose that person as a hunter if we don't? But the other side of that, of course, is, yes, but if we keep doing that, in 5 years, no one's going to be hunting. So, yeah, that's a tough one.
It's a mixed bag, and there's people that they hunt because they literally feed their families. There are some people that only hunt for horns. They just want big bucks. They don't necessarily need the meat. They like it, but they're trophy hunters, right? So our hunting community is very diverse. We try to find, hey, you can still get 2 deer a year with your bow and your gun. They just can't be does. So you can still fill your freezer. But yeah, so I mean, we're going to have a lot of good conversation.
Yeah. I think I've heard that song. I love big bucks and I cannot lie. Isn't that the song? That was about deer hunting, I think.
Yeah,
all right,
I think so.
Romaine, thanks so much for coming on as always and talking with us and sharing some of your views and talking about some things happening down in Madison. We'll see you next month, man.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Special thank you to Wisconsin's 25th District Senator Romaine Quinn for taking the time to come on for a chat today. I'll see you all back here on Tuesday when Barron County Sheriff and I'll be back for our latest episode of Positive Tuesday with Ben and Fitzy. So until then, for DrydenWire.com, I'm Ben Dryden saying thank you for watching and as always, have a blessed day.